So we were dealing with the Fiducia Mathesis algorithm, and some of you were saying that I need to re-explain it with respect to the data structures. So I'll be quickly going through the algorithm again and explaining you the data structures. So first point, are you being able to see the screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes. So I am in slide number 41 and I have come to the algorithm again. So the Fiducia Mathesis algorithm is a partitioning algorithm which was modified by Frank Wahid for hardware software partitioning. And this is the basic version of the algorithm that we are learning here. It starts with an initial partition, each side consisting of a set of tasks. And we are saying that we want to minimize the software cost. The tasks have data communication cost between them. And we are saying that this data communication cost is incurred if with respect to any two tasks in the task graph which are connected by an edge. That means they have a dependency precedence constraint between them. For that, if these two tasks, one of these two tasks is in software and the other is in hardware, then you have to incur this data communication cost. And therefore the total cost the total software execution cost therefore is equal to the total computational cost of all tasks executing in software plus the data communication cost with respect to these edges on one of edges whose edges whose adjacent means sorry whose tasks whose corresponding tasks the edges corresponding to these tasks one is in hardware and the other is in software. So this is the total software cost. No confusion here, right? And we are saying that we want to keep the hardware area cost balanced at each point, right? Therefore the algorithm starts with a balanced partition. We already told what we mean by balance, and then we go inside a loop where we find out the task with the highest gain at each point in time and move it to the other side. We discussed all that, right? We move it to the other side and go on doing this until all tasks are moved to the other side. So the inner repeat loop is a loop of size n. That means this is a for loop which goes from I equals to 1 to n, and where n is the number of tasks. So ultimately we move all tasks from one side to the other with respect to the initial partition. And then we calculate the gains for each such with respect to each such movement from one side to the other side, and these GI values contain these gains, right? We explained all this, and we actually take up the gains of those tasks for which capital G is highest, right? This is what we said. We take the actual gains of those tasks for which the capital G is highest. Now we are saying about, we were talking about the data structure. Firstly, we need to see that the algorithm is overall n square. Means why is it n square? This for loop goes for this for loop for I equals to 1 to n. This one is a loop of size n, right? And then within this n, when we are trying to update the gains of each task, a task can be connected to at most n minus 1 other tasks. So, and we said that when we move a task from one side to the other, then we need to update the gains with respect to the neighboring task, because the gains of the neighboring task will also change when I change the gain of a given task. And because a task can be connected to n minus 1 other tasks, so the updation of these gain values will cost another big O of n time. So then we have a loop of size n within which to update the gain values within each iteration of that. To update the gain values, we are incurring a cost of big O of n. So the overall algorithm cost has a cost of big O of n square, right? And why this is so? Because we are saying that the outer repeat loop only, with the assumption that the outer repeat loop will go for only a small constant number of times, 5 or 6. With this assumption, this algorithm has a complexity of big O of n square. So done with the complexity. Now finally with the data structure. So we are saying that at each point in the algorithm, the data with respect to each of these partitions are maintained is maintained in a data structure. This data structure is maintained at each point in time. Now, at any given time, what do we need to understand? We need to understand the data structure with respect to at a certain instant of time, because all these updations of gains, all these movements are actually happening on this data structure. Whatever we are seeing on this algorithm is happening on the data structure. So that data structure is always present and getting updated due to the algorithm. We have to understand this in this perspective. Right. So let us go into the data structure again. So now let us consider a certain point in time at which we are at a certain partition, right? The partition X, we have a partition X and a partition Y, and X contains some task and Y contains some other task. Let us consider the X side of the partition. Let us understand that whatever data structure, are you in slide number 43 by the way?
Yes,
Hello?
sir. Yes, sir.
Yes. Yes. So let us firstly let us understand that this data structure will be there for both partition X and partition Y. Right. Now let us consider partition X separately. What will be at a given time instant? What will happen? It has a set of tasks, and for each of those tasks, if any, for each task you have a value of gain. That means at this point in time, if this task is moved to the other side, it will give you that gain, right? So understand that at each instant of time, each task has an associated gain. From that only you are finding out the highest gain. So these tasks are kept in the order of their gains. In some way they are they are kept in a certain order with respect to their gains in this data structure. All tasks are there in this data structure in some way with respect to their gains. So now we will understand how these tasks are kept with respect to their gains. Now we said that this data structure, this vertical data structure, is what is an array of pointers. Is an array of pointers. So what does each is an array of pointers? That means if it is an array, it has indexes, and these indexes go from minus p max to plus p max. Okay, means suppose if you are implementing it with C, the indexes go from 0 to some value, but let us not go into C. In general, we can have an array whose indexes start from minus p max to plus p max, and you can adopt C in such a way such that the indexes start from minus p max to plus p max, no problem, right? So therefore, a certain index of this array, uh, now what is minus p max to plus p max? Minus p max represents the lowest possible gain that a task in a certain partition can ever have. Plus p max denotes the maximum possible gain that a task in a certain partition can ever have. So these are constant values. Why these are constant values? Because of this term ever. Minus p max represents the minimum gain that a task in a partition can ever have. Maximum p max, p plus p max tells you the maximum gain that a task can ever have. Right. Now, what does a certain index tell you? Now, a certain array index, that means so what you are having, each array element, the element in each array is a pointer to what? A linked list. See this array? So this array here, this array element, this black dot within this array is an element of the array. This element is a what? Is a pointer, because this is an array of pointers. It points to what? It points to a linked list. What does this linked list contain? It contains all those tasks which are knit together in a linked list, all tasks, all of whom will produce a gain of this max gain, with where max gain is the value of the index corresponding to this element, this array index. So that gain, all these tasks will produce, all these tasks in this linked list will produce this gain when moved to the other side. Similarly, another linked list will be there with respect to this particular index. If you are being able to see what I am drawing, right? If you are able to see what I am drawing, then you are seeing that I have drawn another array position from which I have drawn another linked list. Now this array position has an index, Now what is this index? The sum value of index between minus pmax and plus pmax. So the tasks in this linked list, this new linked list I have drawn, suppose this index has the value I. This index has the value I. That means that all these tasks in this linked list will produce a gain of I when moved to the other side. Are you with me up to this? Any confusion? Hello?
No, sir.
No. Right. Now, therefore, and we also talked about what this max gain is. This max gain is a global variable which points to that index of the linked list which contains tasks with the highest gain. So why does it have? So that we don't have to search which is the highest non-null position in this array of pointers. That is why only this max gain is there. From this max gain, I know which is the task which gives me the highest gain. So finding out why is it there? Because finding out the task with the highest gain becomes an O1, a constant time operation. So now we are saying that we have a similar data structure for partition Y. If this is a data structure for partition X, I have another data structure for partition Y. Then what I am doing, I am taking that I'll find out who is higher between max gain of X and max gain of Y. Because you have a max gain for X, similarly you will have a max gain of Y. So I will just find out who is the higher between max gain of X and max gain of Y. Then I will choose the higher one and take the first task in that position, max gain. So I will from X, suppose I'm choosing the task from X to Y for movement, then I will choose, let us say, this task. If you are seeing what I have circled, and I will move it to the other side. Are you with me? After I have done this movement, I will update the gains of all my neighboring tasks corresponding to this task. If this is the task and I have moved this cell to that means this task to the other side, I have moved that task and moved it to, I have calculated the gain in the other partition and moved it to its particular position in the data structure of that partition. So I have moved this task to Y. Now where will I put it? I will calculate the gain of this task and then put it onto that particular in its correct position in the data structure for Y. Similarly, I will calculate the gains of all the neighboring tasks of this current task, which will, by the way, remain in partition X, but now their positions will change. Why? Because for all the remaining tasks, their gains can change and their and their position in the linked list will change. Position in this data structure will change. However, each such repositioning due to the change of gain takes O1 operation, each reposition. So to change n gains for one move, when you have done one move, you can have at most n-1 neighbors for which you have to change their gains. After you have changed the gain of each of them, you have to move it to their correct positions in the linked list. For doing that, for each of them, you will require an O1 operation. See, you will require a constant time operation. This is what I'm trying to point to. Are you with me? Is there any confusion anymore? Then I will stop discussion of this algorithm and move to the next algorithm. Hello. Hello.
Yes, sir. Sir,
If you have questions, please ask.
No, sir.
No. So then I am moving to the next algorithm.
Sir, any example,
Example I gave last day.
like complete example where we can get that so that we can get complete idea of it?
Complete example I cannot give right now. Maybe can you formulate a small example and give me? Can you, let us say 4-5 tasks, and take a small task graph of 4-5 tasks? Okay, I'll try to give you. Just give me a few days. I'll try to give you one small example after pujas. But there should not be any problem with the understanding here. You can try to do it with a. You can take any task graph, and assign hardware software values for each task, hardware cost and software cost for each task, and data communication. Randomly, you put hardware cost, software cost, and data communication cost. Randomly put those values. You don't have to think what values you're putting. And just follow the steps of this algorithm. You should be able to solve it. What you are trying to do? Minimizing software cost, which is a composition of the computation cost as well as data communication cost, while always maintaining the balance between a lower bound and an upper bound on hardware area cost. This is what you are trying to do. Can you do it once? Try to do it once and tell me yes I could do it or no I could not. What is your name? Just I'm not giving you a very strict assignment, but because you are interested, and because before in the next 2 classes I am a bit packed, and then I after 27th, when our institute reopens, I'll become a bit free. But by this time, can I request you to just use a small example of say 5 task nodes, a task graph consisting of 5-6 task nodes, assign random hardware and software values for each task node, assign random data communication cost values, and use this algorithm to do it. If you are not able to solve, then give me that task graph and I'll solve it for you. I'll take maybe 1 day time and solve it for you on that task graph using this algorithm. Does that work out? Yes. Is that okay? Hello. Nobody is telling anything. Are you with me?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So what is your name? Can I just give you this assignment, small assignment, 5-6 task nodes you take, assign random hardware and software cost values, assign random data communication cost values, and use this algorithm to solve once. Half an hour it should take, not more than that. If you cannot, I will do it. At least generate the task graph on which you tried and give me, I will solve it for you on that. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So
My
what
name
is your name? Give me your name so that I can ask.
Yes, sir. My
Yes.
name is Akula Sri Sai Kiran, sir.
Sai Kiran.
Yes.
That big I did not understand. At least I understood Sai Kiran. So Sai
Yes, sir.
Kiran, yes, I will after I am expecting within this puja holidays, you will try this. If you cannot, you will give me. If you can, if you could make a small on a pen paper, if you could solve it, you can take a photo and send it to me.
Okay, sir.
You do not have to do any slide set, anything. Just do it on a pen and paper and send it to me, sir. This is my solution. I would be very happy.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. So I am shifting to the next. I am a bit pressed on time today, as I am telling you. I'll just shift to the next algorithm quickly. Yeah. So the next one, as we told, that we did a we did an optimal solution strategy using branch and bound. Then we did a heuristic strategy, deterministic heuristic strategy. Now we will go and understand a stochastic strategy and see how embedded systems, this problem on embedded systems can be solved using a stochastic strategy as well. Why we are doing that? Because we are understanding the important optimization strategies, both strictly optimal as well as semi-optimal and quick solution strategies used in embedded software design. And we will see other areas in embedded software design where similar techniques will be applied. Therefore, I am trying to make you understand these techniques in a generic manner, so that now next I will give you the problems, and you should be able to appreciate how those problems can also be solved with the solution strategies that we just studied. Okay, let us understand this stochastic solution approach, which is called simulated annealing. Now, simulated annealing also, I'll not go how simulated annealing works. How it comes from the annealing procedure of metals used in mechanical engineering, but I'll not go into the annealing procedure of metals. It simulates that activity, and therefore it is called simulated annealing. But this is essentially a mathematical procedure again, for optimization. Now, how does it approach? It starts again with an initial configuration. So simulated annealing uses the term configuration, which is again in the parlance of hardware software partitioning, it is just a random initial partition, right? Simulated annealing also starts with a random initial partition, which is a configuration. What do we mean by actually a configuration, and why is it a random hardware software partition? Are we calling it a partition configuration? Because configuration means a certain state in the state space. What does a certain state in the state space? A certain leaf node, sorry, a certain leaf node in the state space. As we said, if we draw the state space diagram of this hardware software partition, we said that given n tasks, we have 2 to the power n different solutions. Any given solution is a certain configuration. Why is it a configuration? Because it is a certain configuration of the task with respect to their allocation into hardware or software. That is why it is called a certain instance of a configuration. Right? Now, it starts with a given configuration and slowly tries to improve the partition using in a probabilistic manner by moving from one state to its neighboring state, from one configuration to its neighboring configuration. Do not understand this state as the intermediate state of a state space. No, your state or configuration means the same thing, and it is a solution. It moves from one solution to a neighboring solution. How do you move from one solution to a neighboring solution? Any idea? For hardware software partitioning, anybody? Because I didn't teach you this directly, but can you just tell me what can this mean? Moving from one solution to a neighboring solution. What does one solution mean? A certain solution mean? And what do you mean when you say I am moving from one solution to its neighboring solution? Hello. Can you just try to say?
So the neighboring solution could be one where just one like one variable or one
Correct.
task is different.
Correct. Where just one task is different, right? So if a solution means a certain set of tasks in software and the remaining set of tasks in hardware, you take any task and move to the other side. So one task becomes different with respect to the previous solution, and therefore this is a neighboring solution. So simulated annealing moves given any complicated state space. Remember, I have chosen hardware software partitioning to discuss these algorithms because it has a very simple state space. Now, for any complicated state space, it has just the same approach. You take a solution and move to its neighboring solution. Right. And move to its neighboring solution probabilistically. See the third point here. So if I go and read this, it is a heuristic approach, and it is similar to the heating and controlled cooling of a material to increase size of its crystals and reduce their defects. It starts with an arbitrary initial configuration and iterates in an attempt to bring the system to a state with the minimum possible cost. At each step, it considers moving to a neighboring state probabilistically, right? Right. So now what does controlled cooling mean? Controlled cooling means the slow decrease in the probability of accepting worse solutions as it explores the solution space. Let us see the algorithm first and then go and slowly try to explain, understand the algorithm. This is the generic structure. Are you in slide number 45?
Yes, sir.
Hello. Yes. So this is the generic structure of the simulated annealing algorithm. Now here, take energy as the software cost, which we want to minimize. Why is it called energy? Because in the annealing process, you want to minimize the energy of the crystals and and bring it down to a low energy state where the crystals make nice shapes, big shapes. You want to have big crystals from small crystals in the annealing process. So it is reduction of energy here, and that is the objective of the annealing process. Here, what is our objective? It is to minimize software cost, and which is the combination of the computation and data communication cost. That is what we want to minimize. So this software cost, whatever is your objective, becomes the energy in your simulated annealing process. So now your, as I told, you start with an initial solution. So S equals to S0 is the initial solution. What does this initial solution mean with respect? This is a generic code, understand. We have to understand this because we have learned two algorithms on hardware software partitioning. We have to understand this from the perspective of hardware software partitioning. What do we have? We have the initial solution is a random initial hardware software partitioning. So S0 represents a random initial hardware software partition. That means S0 is a list of tasks with a subset of them assigned to hardware and the subset of them assigned to software. This is your initial solution. So S equals to S0 is the initial solution. If S equals to S0 is the initial solution, then E equals to ES. So ES is what? ES is a function, capital ES is a function which computes the software cost with respect to that partition. So if S is a solution, capital ES is the software cost with respect to the solution. So small e equals to ES. Now, initially, I have no other solution that in this initial solution is the only known solution. So the global best solution is S best equals to S and E best equals to E. So the global best solution is kept in S best. The cost of the global best solution is kept in E best. So the global best solution is S and the cost of the global best solution is E. Okay. Now the algorithm moves in a while loop. So there is only one while loop in which the algorithm goes on moving. So initially the number of iterations k is 0. Number of iterations k is 0. Now how long does this algorithm progress? Either until the maximum number of iterations have been surpassed. So either you already the maximum number of iterations, you have already gone through the maximum number of iterations, or you have already got a or you have already got a solution for which E is less than E max, less than equals to E max. So E max is the worst acceptable solution cost. That means it is the biggest software execution cost that I can accept. That means if software execution cost is an estimate of time it will take, the system will take to run, it means that Emax gives me that upper bound on allowable software execution time, right? Now, how long will I run this loop then? Until k is less than k max. That means you still not have gone through the entire number of iterations, the maximum number of iterations, or you have still not found a solution whose cost is less than Emax, less than equal to Emax. Whenever you get a solution whose cost is less than equals to Emax, you can stop the algorithm, right? Or if you do not at any point in time at max, you will go for k max iterations. Are you with me up to this? Any problems?
Yes, sir.
No. Okay. Right. So now it finds out something called temperature. Now let us understand what is temperature. The temperature is a certain is a value which has an which initially has a very large value. Why is it called temperature? Because in the annealing process, what do? You take a metal which has still not found into which has still not formed nice crystals. You heat it to a very high temperature because you want to randomize all the molecules inside it and allow random movement of the molecules when you heat it to a very high temperature. Then you slowly cool down at a controlled pace until the crystals form stick to each other and form big crystals of regular shape. And then that is called the low energy state. That is what you want to do. So similarly, what you do in simulated annealing, you first generate a very high value called temperature. And see what is temperature? Temperature is a function of k divided by k max. Now when k is 1 and k max is 0, this value is very low. So that means when the value of k by k max is very low, then the temperature becomes very high. Now when k becomes higher, then the value k by k max becomes higher and the temperature is cooled down. So the temperature, the value of the temperature is inversely proportional to the value of the parameter k by k max, right? As k by k max becomes higher, your temperature becomes lower, right? Now, if you are at a certain state, you have your current solution is S, then S new, you next first, then you so within the loop, first you have got the value of temperature T. At a certain iteration, you will get a certain value of temperature T depending on the value of K and K max. Right. Now you have got the value of temperature T. What is the next thing that you do? You generate a new solution. But the new solution will be a neighbor of the present solution. So the present solution is S. So neighbor of S gives me a new solution. What is E new? E new is the cost of the new solution. So E new, small e new is capital E of S new. So S new is the new solution and E new is the cost of the new solution. Now this neighboring state, this neighboring solution can be better or worse than the current solution, right? Now the question is, what is P? What is P? P is a probability, which says, how it says this, I'm just telling you in the next slide. P says that if your new solution is better in terms of software execution cost, is better than the current solution, always accept it. However, if it is not so, then you will accept it with a probability. So even if the new solution is worse, you will still accept it with a probability. First, let us understand how this probability is calculated. So there are two things here. One is this P, E, comma, E new, comma, T, and the other is random. Random is a random number generator between 0 and 1. Right? Is a random number generator. Let us say it's a uniform random number between 0 and 1. Or let us say between 0.5 and 1. But it is a random number generator. That random number generator, it will always be between 0 and 1. But what is the exact range between 0? What will be the exact lower bound of that? the upper bound will always be 1. The lower bound can be decided depending on the problem you have. But whatever it is a random number between 0 and 1. With this understanding, let us first see what P comma nu comma T is in the next slide. I'm going to the next slide. So P comma nu comma T. Are you in slide number 46? Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes. So this P comma nu comma T is called the acceptance probability. Now see that we are saying that P comma nu comma T is equals to 1 whenever nu is less than E. That means if the new solution has a lower software execution cost than the current solution, your P is assigned the value 1. Let us go back to the previous slide. That means that if nu has a cost which is less than E, that means the new solution is better, it will always be greater than random. If it is right, it will always be greater than random. Why? Because random is a number between 0 and 1, and you are assigned, if the new solution is better than the current solution, then you always accept, you are saying, and you have assigned 1, so you will always accept. So then you accept the new solution. How do you tell that you accept the new solution? You make S equals to S new and E equals to E new. That means you accept the new solution, right? How do you accept? Because you are accepting the current solution as S new. S equals to S new means what? S is what? Current solution. S base is the best solution. S is the current solution. Now you are making the current solution equals to S new. That means you are accepting the current solution. You are also accepting the cost of the current solution if you are accepting the current solution. Now let us see what happens when E new is greater than E. So what do you mean by E new being greater than E? That means the current solution is worse than the last solution, previous solution. Are you with me up to this? Hello, are you with me?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So now what are we trying to understand? Trying to understand the situation when the new solution that means the neighboring solution with respect to the current solution is worse than the current solution. In that case, you generate the value of P becomes this. The value of P becomes e to the power minus E nu minus E by T, which is equals to 1 by e to the power E nu minus E by T, right? E to the power minus E nu minus E by T is equals to 1 by e to the power e to the power E nu minus E by T, right? Are you seeing what I have written? Although with a very bad handwriting. Could you see? Hello, are you in slide number
Yes,
46?
sir. Yes, sir.
Yes. So now when E nu is greater than E, then you are having a worse solution. Now what is happening? You are accepting this E nu minus E by T. What is T? T is the value of temperature. And we said T initially is very high. If T initially is very high, you are approaching e to the power 0 here, right? Which is very close to 1, right? So which means this probability will become 1 by 1 almost, which is equals to close to 1. That means that you will have a very high probability of accepting even bad solutions. But this is probabilistic. It is not guaranteed. But depending on E nu minus E and divided by T, you will generate a value of P, and you also have a random number on the other side. So there is a very high chance that there is a very high chance that this thing, that P P, that this value of P will be greater than random, even if it is worse, but only during the initial stages when the temperature is high. Remember, when you go through the iterations, your temperature becomes lower and lower, and then your value will become lower than 1. Why? When the I've again come to slide number 46. You see now what is happening when temperature becomes low. E to the power E nu by E starts to become high, e to the power some higher value which is greater than 0. When it becomes greater than 0, then 1 by some, you will start to get some value which is greater than 1. When you start getting values greater than 1, then what will happen? Then your 1 by e to the power, then the value of P will slowly reduce, will go on reducing. Now your probability of accepting worse solutions will therefore decrease. So initially the probability of accepting worse remaining solutions is very high. As the iterations proceed, the probability of accepting worse remaining solutions, worse than the current solution, the probability of accepting solutions which are worse than the current solution decreases. Right. So now with this understanding, we go back to this algorithm, slide number 45 again. So then what essentially is happening? You are always, you are going on from the current solution, you generate a neighboring solution and go to the neighboring solution. If the neighboring solution is better than the current solution, you always accept that. But it is not that you only accept better solutions, you also initially at least accept worse solutions. Why? Because we saw that worse solutions has the probability of generating very good solutions later. So in terms of optimization, it says that if you do not accept worse solutions, you will quickly go to a local optima and you will not be able to improve the value of the partition, the quality of the partition in terms of software execution cost. But if you accept initially, at least if you accept worse solutions, then you have a very high probability that later you will get better solutions, much better solutions. But towards the end of the iterations, as you go and your temperature reduces, you do not want to accept worse solutions anymore. Why? Because you have already got a sufficiently good S best and E best. Let us just understand the rest of the algorithm, and then I will come back to this discussion, because I need to tell you how is E best, S best and E best changing. Now, at any point in time, so S best initially and E best initially, see that S best and E best were equal to the value of the initial partition. And now whenever your new partition that you have got has a cost which is less than the best cost, that means it is better. Your software execution cost is less than the current best software execution cost. That means you have got a better solution. Then you update S best and E best. Right? You update S best and E best. Right? You update S best and E best. So now you get a better S best and E best. And finally, you return what as the at the end of the algorithm, after this loop ends, due to you have, because of this condition or due to this condition. That means whether due to K being less than K max, or being K becoming equal to K max, or E becoming equal to E max, E less than equals to E max. Due to any of these two reasons, you will exit out of the loop. When you exit out of the loop, your algorithm stops. When your algorithm stops, whatever is your current value of S best and E best is your solution. Now I come back to what? I come back to your I come back to what I was discussing regarding what happens when your temperature reduces. Now, when your temperature is high, you allow worse solutions much more. Means at a much more frequency, you allow worse solutions to be accepted. Why? Because worse solutions has a probability that it will provide good solutions later. Now, during later parts, during later stages of this simulated annealing process, during later iterations, you have already got a good enough current based, a very good current based solution, and best solution, and a very good E based cost. S based and E based are already very good through the entire process that you have already done. Now, you don't want to perturb the solution anymore. You now want to get into a local minima and freeze down as to whatever is your value, whatever is your best known value currently. You don't want to perturb the solution anymore further to go and freeze to a certain value, right? That is why as you go through the iterations, you slowly reduce the probability of accepting worse solutions. Now, with respect to the annealing process of metals, as the temperature is cooled, your movement, your random movements of the molecules reduces, and you go and slowly fix into a certain crystalline structure as your temperature reduces. Similarly, as your temperature is reduced in the simulated annealing process, you go on lowering your probability of accepting worse solutions, and finally freeze on to a certain best partition. This is what your objective. Now, if you see a bit closely, it is very similar to your state space search. But you can also understand this is not an optimal state space search. It may not give you an optimal state space search, optimal solution. However, it will go, if you do not know the structure of the solution, structure of the problem, like you have you in fiducia mathesis, you go on finding out the gains, whoever gives you the best gain, and do it. In many cases, when the structure of the problem is not exactly very nicely known, you use a stochastic solution approach like this to generate a solution with a good to get good acceptable solutions within a reasonable amount of time. And you do not want to get through the entire process of generating an optimal solution, because it is also time consuming. Here you can limit whatever is your bound on Kmax. You can limit that bound on Kmax and say that at most I will run this algorithm for this much time, and whatever is the best solution within this time, I will stop. And but before this time also, if I get an acceptable solution which is less than equals to Emax, I will still stop. This is what your objective is. Have you understood the simulated annealing approach? Any questions on this? Hello? Hello? Are you with me?
Yes, sir.
Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes, have you understood the solution approach?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes. So if this is so, today I do not have any more time. I have to go into another meeting. I will have to stop the class today here. Sorry for this, but again, it's an administrative issue. I cannot help it. So I will meet you again on Wednesday at 5 p.m. Okay. Goodbye for today. I'll take up more questions if you have. Go through this. I will send. Okay. By the way, I will send you the slides by tomorrow morning, and you go through the slides. And if you have any questions, we will discuss that on Wednesday again. Okay. Hello.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.